What if I told you there are secret records suggesting that we were never alone? This question, as simple as it is disturbing, echoes among hidden archives, forgotten documents, and symbols that span millennia, hidden in plain sight. Several ancient civilizations, separated by oceans and centuries, have left clues that today force us to reconsider everything we know about the origins of humanity. Cave drawings reveal figures in impossible attire for the time, with helmets and antennas. Sumerian tablets describe gods coming from the stars, and sacred tales mention luminous entities descending from the sky in flaming chariots. Coincidence, or part of a larger, meticulously hidden truth? Sources that never made the headlines suggest something even more surprising. We have been observed since the beginning. With each advancement of our species, there are records of strange sightings, lights in the sky, and unexplained sounds coming from space. These records, when analyzed with today's technology, show patterns that defy the known laws of physics. Was this data ignored, or purposefully silenced? In documents declassified by governments such as the United States, there are explicit references to non-human entities interacting with our planet since ancient times. Some files speak of contacts recorded during World War II, while others point to even older encounters, dating back to before the birth of Christ. Why has this never been revealed to the public? Who is behind this veil of millennia-old silence? At the same time, new archaeological discoveries, such as structures that were impossible to build with the technology of the time, are reinforcing the theory of external interference. In the Sahara Desert, for example, a perfect geometric formation was revealed by satellites with alignments that point directly to specific constellations. Could this be a simple human work, or a signature left by something or someone beyond our comprehension? Traditional science tries to explain it, but it doesn't always succeed. Classical physics fails when faced with certain energetic phenomena recorded in these places. Ancient spirituality, on the other hand, has always spoken of celestial beings, cosmic watchers and masters of the stars. But what if these divinities were in fact interplanetary observers? Cosmic travelers who have crossed galaxies and have been monitoring our evolution since the beginning of time? Confidential reports recovered by independent researchers mention noises picked up in deep space that repeat in cycles of exactly 13,000 years. These signals, which cannot be attributed to known natural phenomena, resemble codes that may be trying to communicate, or simply record everything we do, think, build, as if we were inside a gigantic universal experiment. And now, with new technologies like the James Webb Telescope, we are beginning to see what was previously invisible. But are we ready for what we're going to find? Because maybe the next discovery is not just proof, but a calling. When we look closely at the records left by ancient civilizations such as Egypt, Sumeria, and the Maya, we realize that something does not fit the traditional narrative. These cultures, separated by thousands of kilometers and with no contact with each other, produced enigmatic representations with elements that do not correspond to the reality of their respective times. On the walls of Egyptian temples, Sumerian sculptures, and Mayan codices, we see figures wearing what clearly appear to be helmets, pressure suits, and even artifacts with ship-like structures, ships that strikingly resemble modern aerospace vehicles. How could people with rudimentary technology have conceived such images? The gods they worshipped, according to these records, did not come from the mountains or the sea, but from the stars. They descended in flying machines, in spirals of light, and always left precise instructions on agriculture, architecture, and astronomy. Knowledge that was too advanced for the context in which they emerged. Among the Sumerians, for example, there is direct mention of beings called Anunnaki, who would have come from an unknown planet. In Egypt, the pharaohs themselves were considered direct descendants of the celestial beings. And in the Mayan codices, We find prophecies that speak of the return of these star gods after a cosmic cycle of observation and judgment. The texts and symbols engraved on these civilizations form an ancient puzzle, ignored for centuries by official academia. But now, with the intersection of archaeological, astronomical, and linguistic data, a new narrative is beginning to emerge, one that challenges everything we think we know about our own origins. And as this hidden truth gains strength, the question that remains in the air remains. If these beings really came from the stars, then who were they? And most disturbing, did they leave, or are they still here, silently watching, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves? This unsettling question begins to take shape as new discoveries come to light, revealing signs, codes, and patterns that can no longer be ignored. Everything indicates that the mystery not only exists, but is closer to being unraveled than we ever imagined. And what comes next may be the most revealing piece of all. Among the most disturbing evidence supporting this hypothesis of a non-human presence observing humanity since time immemorial are artifacts and archaeological records that defy conventional explanation. At the Temple of Abydos in Egypt, for example, there is a mural that clearly depicts a helicopter, a submarine, and even a spaceship, sculpted in such detail that it does not fit with any technology of the time. Experts have tried to explain these images as accidental superimpositions, but many independent scholars argue that there is something deeper, something hidden in these records that has been deliberately overlooked. In Central America, Mayan sculptures show us figures with tight-fitting suits, helmets, tubes connected to the nose, and a body position that directly refers to modern astronauts. The best-known example is the lid of the Pacal sarcophagus in Mexico, which shows the leader in a reclining position, operating what appears to be a control panel, surrounded by thrusters and exhaust systems. Could this be just an artistic coincidence, or a faithful representation of something that was actually seen and experienced by these people? In addition to the images, there are ancient texts that speak with disturbing clarity about visits from beings who came from the sky in great flaming chariots, who descended amid thunder and smoke, bringing messages of order, knowledge, and punishment. In the Sumerian tablets, we find the account of beings coming from a planet called Nibiru, and the strangest thing is that, in some recent astronomical representations, this celestial body is beginning to be suggested by scientists as a possible hidden mass beyond Neptune. Coincidence? Or yet another forgotten piece of evidence now rediscovered? Similar evidence has emerged in Japan, where the so-called dog figurines, dating back more than 10,000 years, feature humanoid forms with enormous eyes, clothing resembling technological armor, and an aesthetic that is unlike anything known on Earth at that time. All of this is also repeated in the Nazca lines in Peru, giant geoglyphs that can only be seen from above and that many researchers believe are landing strips for visitors from outside the planet. These discoveries, despite being treated with skepticism by traditional science, continue to emerge. They not only challenge the chronological logic of modern archaeology, but also fuel the idea that we may be looking at a legacy left by beings who wanted, and still want, us to find them. After all, who would leave messages engraved in stone, visible only from the sky, if not those who came from the stars? And when we talk about signs left by a non-human intelligence, we cannot ignore the inexplicable technological interventions spread throughout the world. Colossal structures that defy logic, engineering, and even known physics. The pyramids of Egypt, for example, continue to be one of the greatest enigmas in archaeology. How did ancient people, supposedly without precision tools, manage to cut and transport blocks of stone weighing several tons, with such perfect fits that not even a thin metal blade can pass between them? And why are these constructions aligned with millimeter precision to constellations such as Orion and to specific astronomical events, such as the solstices? we're not just talking about manual skill. We're talking about advanced astronomical knowledge, construction techniques that have never been replicated before, and a pattern that is repeated around the world. On Easter Island, the Moai, stone giants carved with human features, stare out into the distance as if waiting for someone or something. These figures, weighing up to 80 tons, were erected on an isolated island with no wood, metal, or beasts of burden. Who put them there? And more importantly, for what purpose? Peru's Nazca lines, on the other hand, only make sense when viewed from the sky. Miles of geoglyphs depicting animals, humanoid figures, and geometric shapes suggest landing strips. In ancient times, who would have been able to fly over that region to see and plan these markings with such precision? The evidence suggests interference, help from above, from observers who may not only be watching over us, but also guiding us. There are reports that technologies capable of cutting stone with surgical precision existed in ancient times, but were erased from historical records. In Pumapunku, Bolivia, blocks of andesite were shaped with perfect angles and holes that, to this day, we have not been able to replicate with modern tools. These pieces look more like the result of computerized machines than primitive instruments. And there is no sign of mistakes, of trials, of learning. It is as if someone, or something, already knew exactly what they were doing, as if they were following a blueprint, a larger plan. These buildings did not appear by chance. There is a pattern, a mysterious synchronicity between them, as if a higher intelligence had left markers scattered around the planet, perhaps as part of a global experiment, perhaps as a reminder. The question that echoes is inevitable. Were these structures made to resist time or to resist oblivion? Because the more we study them, the more we realize that what we believe to be just history may in fact be the greatest proof that we were never alone in this world. If we delve into the oldest records of human spirituality, we begin to realize that references to celestial beings, lights in the sky, and entities coming from other dimensions are not just symbolic or metaphorical. They appear consistently in different religions and cultures around the planet. In the Bible, for example, the prophet Ezekiel describes in great detail a vision that still intrigues scholars today. He speaks of a wheel within a wheel, with eyes all around, which moved in all directions without turning. By the standards of the time, this was interpreted as a divine vision. But many modern theorists suggest that Ezekiel may have actually been describing a ship, a type of unknown technology that was beyond the understanding of the time. In other biblical texts, we find the famous angels of heaven, who often descend to earth in chariots of fire. This expression appears repeatedly, as in the case of the prophet Elijah, who was taken to heaven in one of these chariots. But what exactly were these flaming chariots? Mystical vehicles? Or perhaps, as some scholars claim, ancient descriptions of ships with incandescent propellers seen by human eyes that did not have the technical vocabulary to explain what they were witnessing. In Hindu tradition, we find the Vimanas, flying machines described in the Vedas, the sacred texts of ancient India. These celestial vehicles are portrayed as complex structures with compartments, propulsion, and even weapons. Are they just poetic myths, or historical records of contacts with a superior intelligence that visited Earth in immemorial times? Interestingly, the reports of these flying machines coincide with dates when similar figures also appear in other regions of the world, which raises the possibility of a coordinated global presence that is invisible to modern eyes. The Mayans, in their codices, speak of those who came from the stars, entities who taught them how to tell time, interpret the heavens, and construct alignments with distant planets. The Sumerians, in turn, mention the Anunnaki, who descended from the heavens and altered the course of human history. And even in Islam, we find the account of the journey of the Prophet Muhammad, who was said to have been taken to heaven on a winged creature called Burak. The pattern repeats itself, like a silent echo of a truth that insists on surviving time, changes in language and censorship imposed for millennia. The records are there, in scripture, in legend, in spiritual traditions, and they all point in the same direction. As if, since the beginning of time, a presence from above had been trying to communicate with humanity in a coded, symbolic, but profoundly revealing way. With the advancement of modern science, we have entered a new era of revelation. The most powerful telescopes ever created, such as the James Webb and Hubble, are revealing parts of the universe that until recently were completely invisible to the human eye. And the more we look into the cosmos, the more we realize that maybe someone else is looking back. Astronomy has already detected cosmic signals that simply don't make sense within the known natural patterns. Fast radio bursts, called FRBs, appear in patterns that repeat with mathematical precision, as if they were transmissions. Codes sent from far away by intelligences still hidden. These signals, which would be random if they were natural, are being recorded with increasing frequency. In some cases, they originate from galaxies billions of light-years away, and yet they reach us with a strength and a rate that raise suspicions. Serious scientists are already beginning to hypothesize that such phenomena may be forms of interplanetary communication, or perhaps automatic observation records that these higher intelligences use to monitor our progress. But it doesn't stop there. Declassified files from powerful governments, such as the United States, have begun to emerge, revealing that for decades, military and space agencies have detected unidentified flying objects performing maneuvers that defy all known laws of physics. Objects that appear and disappear in fractions of a second, that change direction without decelerating, that hover without any visible mechanism of support. Many of these records had been hidden under the pretext of national security. Today, they are documented proof that something, or someone, is monitoring us. And we're not talking about simple conspiracy theories. We're talking about technical reports, videos recorded by state-of-the-art fighter jets, radars capturing movements at extreme altitudes, and experienced pilots declaring that they were not alone in the sky. The Pentagon itself created an exclusive group to study unexplained aerial phenomena, and recently acknowledged that there are technologies that escape humanity's current understanding. That alone would be enough to call into question everything we know about what and who inhabits this universe. At the same time, new space surveillance technologies and radio telescopes have detected echoes and reflections in areas where there should be no natural emissions. It is as if some kind of intelligence is watching us, using tools that simulate the surrounding environment, camouflaging its presence. A presence that remains active, silent, and extremely advanced. And when we look at all of this with a more critical eye, a deeply disturbing question begins to emerge. Why does so much of this evidence, records, and proof simply disappear? Why do entire recordings of unexplained contacts disappear from public archives, are classified as inconclusive, or transferred to secret government sectors? The answer may lie in the countless conspiracy theories that, year after year, gain strength precisely because of the official silence. One of the most emblematic cases is Project Blue Book, an investigation conducted by the United States Air Force between the 1950s and 1960s, with the supposed objective of analyzing unidentified aerial phenomena. What many do not know is that of the more than 12,000 cases investigated, hundreds were classified as unexplained even after technical analysis, and when the project was closed, the most sensitive documents simply disappeared from public reports. Another frightening example is Area 51, a military base located in the Nevada desert that for decades was not even officially recognized by the U.S. government. Videos, reports from former employees, satellite images, and leaks suggest that tests are being carried out there with technologies of unknown origin, including artifacts that are not from this world. but any attempt to get closer or investigate is completely blocked, and any data revealed to the public is always surrounded by contradictions and conflicting versions. Why is there so much secrecy surrounding a normal facility? Recordings made by pilots, civilian and military radar operators, and ordinary citizens often disappear after being handed over to authorities. There are reports of people who, after witnessing unexplained events and sharing the material, were visited by federal agents and forced to sign gag orders. What did these recordings show? Why did they disappear? Could they be proving something that the world's governments are not yet ready to admit? And it's not just the United States. Similar cases have occurred in Brazil, such as the famous Operation Prato, conducted by the Brazilian Air Force in the Amazon, which investigated dozens of sightings and contacts with unidentified flying objects. Leaked reports reveal that investigators were convinced they were dealing with superior intelligence. Yet most of the documents remain classified to this day. Why? This combination of systematic cover-up, censored files, and the disappearance of evidence fuels a growing sentiment among independent scientists, theorists, and thousands of people around the world that not only are we being watched, but that there is a concerted effort to ensure that we never know the full truth about who or what is watching us. In the face of so many clues, hidden records, censored discoveries, and ignored evidence, an even deeper and more disturbing possibility arises. What if these supposed observers are not just external, distant, and indifferent entities? What if, in fact, they are part of our own evolutionary process? An invisible presence that silently accompanies each step of humanity, not to interfere directly, but to guide, shape, and perhaps test our consciousness over time. This hypothesis leads us to a spiritual and philosophical connection that goes beyond science and traditional theories. Perhaps we are not dealing simply with visitors from other planets, but with agents of a larger universal system, whose mission involves the moral, mental, and energetic development of human civilization. Various spiritual traditions, from different cultures and eras, speak of beings of light, superior, entities, cosmic guardians, and celestial instructors. In many of these traditions, these beings do not appear to dominate or destroy, but rather to observe, teach, and accompany, as if the universe had a greater plan, and each inhabited planet were part of a gigantic cosmic laboratory, where spiritual growth and the expansion of consciousness are observed with interest by intelligences that have already overcome the dilemmas that we still face. This would explain why so many of these appearances are linked to crucial historical moments, such as wars, technological changes, or spiritual revolutions. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said that everything flows. Everything is in constant transformation. What if these observers are the vectors of this flow, mirrors of a cosmic intelligence that accompanies the awakening of other civilizations, including our own? In this scenario, direct contact would not be necessary because the simple presence, even hidden, would already generate subtle changes in collective behavior, human values, and even in the way we perceive the world. It is as if we were being constantly analyzed, not like laboratory rats, but like seeds in the process of germination, waiting for the right moment to blossom. This type of surveillance would not be invasive, but rather profoundly strategic. At the right moments, clues are left. Sacred texts, monuments aligned with the stars, signs in the sky, revealing dreams. Elements that, for the most attentive, function as codes activating ancestral memories. And then a new question imposes itself with even greater force. What if they have always been here, not just observing us from the outside, but inhabiting other layers of reality, other dimensions of existence of which we only have glimpses? Perhaps what we call spirituality, intuition, divine inspiration, is, in fact, the whisper of these silent presences that accompany every thought, every advance, and every fall of humanity. What if the Great Contact had already happened, but we simply weren't informed? This possibility, as disturbing as it may seem, is increasingly present in debates among researchers, spiritualists, and scholars of ancient documents. There are millennia-old prophecies that speak of a time of revelation, a period in which the veil between the worlds would be torn apart and hidden truths would finally come to light. Prophecies that describe the sky being torn apart by lights, entities descending amid smoke and deafening sounds, and divine messages being delivered to humanity. And the most disturbing thing is that many of these predictions point to the same time frame, the year 2025. In the book of Daniel, there is a prophecy that speaks about the time of the end, in which knowledge will increase and many will run to and fro. A description that fits frighteningly with the age of information, artificial intelligence, and digital acceleration that we are living in. In the Mayan calendars, which many thought would end in 2012, there are indications that this was not the end of time, but the beginning of a new count, a preparation for something bigger, something that would be completed years later, possibly in solar and galactic cycles that aligned precisely in 2025. The Hopi, a Native American people, speak of the arrival of brothers from the stars during the transition to the Fourth Age. The Egyptians left inscriptions about the return of Neteru, gods from the sky who would one day return to restore balance to the earth. In Hindu scriptures, the end of the Kali Yuga era would bring a new manifestation of cosmic knowledge, revealing forgotten truths. In all these cultures, there is a pattern. The contact will not be accidental. It will be part of a cycle, a key moment that redefines everything. And when we cross-reference this information with modern documents, such as government reports that have recently begun to acknowledge the existence of UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, we realize that something is happening, something that until recently was treated as taboo, but is now approaching with disconcerting speed. The accumulation of revelations, leaks, and institutional movements points to an imminent event. What was once an assumption is now taking on the appearance of preparation, and 2025, cited in several independent sources, seems to be the turning point, the prophetic milestone for a possible revelation that could change our understanding of reality, spirituality, and existence. The clock is ticking, and the pieces of this cosmic puzzle are being positioned before our eyes, one by one, as if the time of ignorance were ending and the time of truth were about to begin. So, faced with so many clues, ancient records, cosmic signs, and hidden revelations, we need to ask ourselves more seriously. Are we really alone? Or have we always been part of something bigger, a cosmic cycle of surveillance, learning, and silent preparation for a contact that has already begun, but has been denied to us? The pieces are there, engraved in stone, hidden in sacred texts, protected by governments, and whispered in ancient traditions. Perhaps what many call myth, faith, or legend is, in fact, a code that we are still trying to decipher. And perhaps the truth, the one that has been erased for centuries, is finally about to emerge. Because if all this is real, and it increasingly seems to be, then the most pressing question is not, are we being watched, but rather, what do they expect of us? If you've made it this far, it means you're searching for answers, just like thousands of other people who feel like there's something beyond the surface. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with me. In the next video, I'll reveal the evidence they've hidden for centuries, and you need to see it for yourself. Comment below. They are already among us. This helps the algorithm understand that this content needs to reach more truth seekers like you. Leave a like if this video made you think differently about all this, and don't forget to watch the next video that is now appearing on the screen. It is the direct continuation of this cosmic investigation.